man.
What state are you in?
I'm in Florida now, but I'm a lifelong
Okay.
New Yorker. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
By the way, I just went live, just so you know,
Oh,
just
okay.
now. So anything you say now can and will incriminate you. Yeah. Yeah. How long have you been playing Dynasty for?
Oh, a long time. Probably at least a decade.
Yep. And you were obviously a regular redraft player before that, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I got started. It's just like, that's everyone's gateway, I feel like. But then it's like, you find out that you can hold these players for longer and make it more of like a GM experience. And that's enticing.
Did you do that disaster thing in your first startup where you basically drafted like a redraft league, and then before in like year 3, you're like, I have every guy that's about to fall. My first 3-round picks are about to fall out of the league.
Oh, dude, it's so funny because like, my first Dynasty league is just like with all my friends. So like, yeah, like I think I did do that, but like so did everybody else. So just, like played the league out like the first couple of years, and then I think like 3 or 4 years in, we're like, should we just like redraft this, because I think we all just collectively did this wrong.
Right. So you got a mulligan. You got a get out of jail free card. My first one with my homeling friends, I'm still in. It's like 11 years later, 9 years later, something like that. And couple how with that philosophy with like 3 of the world's worst trades, which I'll reveal to you later on. But, I'm just now digging out of the hole now from 5 years ago, which, as you know, and that's why I wanted to talk to you specifically. And if you notice, I want to talk to you about running back values. That's our main topic. We're going to talk about that today. But specifically, because when you participated in the RotoWire magazine mock, I noticed you're a wide receiver heavy player. So yep. I strategically picked running back as our topic because I want to know how wide receiver heavy players take care of the running back position, because you really pushed it to the edge in the magazine mock.
Yeah. And that's kind of our philosophy at ETR. Like our dynasty ranks are really wide receiver heavy. Like we're really low, I think, versus the industry. Pretty much, I think we're probably the lowest on all these running backs. Just because, year over year, like, of course, you need those points. Like, no one's going to argue that you don't need running back points in fantasy football. But the stuff that you see in redraft that maybe devalues running back a little bit is compounded, I think, a lot more in Dynasty, because you extend these runways more than a year, and the pitfalls of the position in terms of injury, in terms of, contract stability, workload. All those things, I think, just become more and more compounded, and it becomes a lot more difficult, I think, to make a big investment long-term in that position.
Yeah. On the audio version of this podcast, I'll have done an intro for you so everybody know. But anyone that's watching the video, of course, I'm with Anthony Amico, who does amazing dynasty work for Establish the Run. And I saw in your Twitter profile, do you do some writing also for Football Guys?
Yeah, I do. I do projections and, participate in like roundtable stuff, like here and there, kind of content, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're working full time, doing this stuff full time. So, how many hours a week are you able to put into this stuff? And also, how do you do it? Because like I told you already, I taught, in public school, and it knocked me out. I couldn't do both. I was spinning in my head. So how do you manage your life? And you said that you have a family too, right? You do pay attention to them.
Yeah. I think, my wife would say I work too much, but which she's right. I'm trying to get better at it. But yeah, I think being able to balance everything is really just about being efficient. Like that's kind of what I pride myself in, is efficiency. Like I've really streamlined a few processes for myself in a bunch of the things that I do, just to cut hours out that you don't have to spend doing stuff, basically, and then you get more time to do the stuff that you want to do. So.
What's your overall dynasty philosophy? Let's start with it. How many dynasty leagues are you currently in right now?
I'm in 2 main ones that I would say devote most of my time to, with like a couple guys in the industry. Mike Leone like started these leagues up for us, and they've been a lot of fun. These like best ball, Superflex dynasty leagues, like deep rosters, like those are the best to me.
The best ball, right? Because you don't have to think about it. Now, I'm mixed on the best ball thing, and I'm in a couple of the best ball style dynasty leagues too. One, it's great because with all the stuff going on in your life, you don't have to like deal with the minutia of Thursday changes and all that stuff. But I found, and I'm ashamed to admit this. I'm in 30 dynasty leagues, and by the way, I don't say that with pride. I say that with a lot of shame because I'm one of these draft addicts. I know, but I find that I'm not as engaged in those leagues. But when you're in 2 leagues, that's a different story because you're locked in on those leagues. So I guess really, are you going to be doing any more startups this year, maybe next year, or got to see as they come?
Yeah, that's always the question, right? So I was trying to get in a couple of these FFPC leagues because I think that, they obviously make it really easy for you to get involved and participate. But they just weren't filling fast enough, like in the summer. So now I'm like, now I'm really kind of like just dialed in on some of this other stuff I have to do. So I'm going to readdress this, I think, over the next couple months or definitely for next year. I mean, like the startup stuff is so fun, like it's so addicting. But I'm really trying to be smart because I was in a similar position to you, maybe like a handful of years ago, and I was like, all right, like I think I have to be responsible here and try to limit this.
No, you're right. Like I said, it's one of those things where it's literally kind of like it's a drug. You get that high from the startup draft, and then you look and you're like, oh my God, I have to make 30 changes, pickups, all that stuff. It really is wild. So I guess let's start with your overall dynasty philosophy. Let's start with, if you're in a startup. I know FFPC is 2 receivers, 2 flex, but let's talk in terms of Superflex draft. 3 receivers, couple flexes, because those are a lot of leagues that are starting to pop up now where, just these maniacal sick leagues where there's tons of starters. So what is we already talked that you're a little bit wide receiver heavy, but what's your overall dynasty philosophy in a startup?
Yeah, I mean, just win now all the time. Like, I think that we're in position in dynasty still where you can get those core building blocks early. But there's still going to be plenty of players like throughout your startup that can help you win immediately. Like guys who are maybe like 5th to 8th round kind of redraft values that you get in like the teens in a startup. So that really puts you in position to get, again, like it's not like you have to be in kind of the position we talked about earlier where like you have all these 1 year, 2 year guys and you're dust in a couple of years. Like you can get those younger building blocks early, those core players, guys, again, preferably at receiver, quarterback in Superflex that can be on your team for a long time, be really productive. And then you fill out your roster with the guys who are more interchangeable, the guys who, can produce you points now, maybe over the next 2-3 years. And those guys you can kind of continuously shuffle through. So that's pretty much my approach.
Yeah, and you can buy older running backs if you're willing to, maybe give $1.10 on the dollar. It's nearly impossible to buy running backs. Like you're not going to be in your dynasty league that's been going on for a couple of years and get a fair price on DeAndre Swift. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. You're going to have to pay with you're going to have to give Jamar Chase, and then you're just never going to get even money. Whereas the running backs, if you want to buy older ones, you can buy Melvin Gordon this year to fill in your RB2. You can buy Fernandez. I'm sure these are some of the guys that we're going to talk about. What do you think you talked about win now, and I saw a poll that I referenced on Twitter. Actually, Jordan McNamara from Football Guys brought my attention to it. And it was, what's your favorite part about Dynasty Fantasy Football? And amazingly, only 37% of people said winning. It's like 20-something% said trading. Another percentage said getting rookie picks. So in any given year, you're only really competing with like 7 people in your league because you've seen what happens. Somebody goes 1-4, and what do they start doing? It's like sell off.
Tank is on.
The tank is on. Hashtag tank is on. I'm going to be using that. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of teams in my league, you're really only a middle of the road team. That's fine because I'll grind my way. I'll look what the DFS guys are doing and what $3,000 receiver that I can put in my flex or whatever to do. So what do you think the biggest mistake that most even experienced dynasty players make?
Oh, I definitely think just valuing your own assets too highly. I think that we've all been in this position, whether it's like trade or you're trying to figure out your roster where like there's like an anchoring bias that occurs when like this guy is already on your roster. And then, what happens? Like you don't move off of him until it's too late. You don't move off this player until he's lost a ton of value, or you're trying to make a trade or make a move and you can't quite get yourself to pull the trigger. And it's probably mostly just because that guy's already there. and you have experience with this player. Like this is someone that you have like kind of like an attachment to, even though you maybe don't realize it. So, I think valuing your own assets too highly can get you in a lot of trouble, especially like with your league mates. Like if you're the guy who's, constantly marking up your own players, like you're playing with these guys for a long time. Like they get to know you pretty well. So you don't want to have that kind of reputation. So yeah, I think that's a really big pitfall. I think, you gotta be willing to reshuffle things. I mean, I think that if you're win now all the time, which is what I'm trying to do, like that means like selling some guys that are really good now, because you think maybe in a year they might not be, and that's hard to do. But you have.
Who's an example of a player like that? Just that pops off the top of your head. Someone that's really good now, but you think in 18 months from now is going to have lower dynasty value. That might be, maybe like a hidden or a sneaky sell candidate right now.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote up Cooper Kupp as a sell maybe like a month ago for this reason. I mean, he's coming off like the best receiver season maybe ever. I've certainly like in my own fantasy kind of lifetime, outside of like that one Randy Moss year maybe. So like it's hard to sell a guy like that. It's hard to sell a guy that like is probably going to be like a top 5 receiver pretty easily. But then you look at the rest of his career and you're like, all right, well, like he's been hurt a few times. He is getting older. They have added some other players. Like it wouldn't surprise me at all if like a year from now, I don't think he's going to be like, wide receiver 30 or all of a sudden, but like all it takes is one injury or one like non-perfectly dominant season. And all of a sudden Cooper Kupp is wide receiver 12 in Dynasty, and you can get a ton from him now. So I think that's time.
No, that makes sense. Like it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes as wide receiver 13 on the year or wide receiver 11 on the year. And that's certainly not what his value is right now. You can get a ton for him. But as you know, dynasty players are ageist to a fault. Yep. I've done a ton of videos on this where there's no better example, and I use it. Anyone who's a regular listener to this podcast knows that Mike Evans is the poster boy for this, like where he's wide receiver 6 in redraft rankings, and he's wide receiver 23 in Dynasty. And I always say that the Dynasty players' biggest leak in their game is that they don't let the redraft market do the work for them. I mean, sure. We're the best, you're over at ETR and Football Guys, and you're projecting, and you're a great projector. The greatest projectors do an okay job of predicting what's going to happen in the season in front of us. How the hell are you going to project what's going to be 3 seasons out? So win now all the time shows that self-awareness that, hey, it's who knows if we're all going to be alive in 3 years? Who knows if your league's going to be healthy in 3 years? So yes, win now all the time. Let's take a quick break here just to let everybody know that if you love fantasy sports and you're ready for a new challenge, Dynasty Owner is the new way to play fantasy football with real NFL salaries, adding strategy, and running actual franchise. Dynasty Owner provides a unique and challenging experience that will test your skills as a Dynasty Owner general manager. You will have complete control of your team's future. You can build through the draft, make trades, sign free agents. Can you create a dynasty of champions? Sign up now at dynastyowner.com. Use promo code ROTO5 to receive $5 off any new team. I'm here with Anthony Amico from Establish the Run, does some great work over at Football Guys, and we're talking about dynasty in general, but we're going to talk about the top 7 running back values, and specifically because Anthony is a wide receiver first type of player. A lot of sharp players do that. The market has gotten so crazy, Anthony, for wide receivers and startups that I've been forced to go running back heavy approach. Is there a point where they're just, people are pushing up these receivers that would, 2 rounds to go receiver, that you would pivot off that strategy?
Yes. I mean, I think that there's a line, but I probably don't think that we're there yet, just because. Well, I guess really 2 reasons. Like number one, I still want to invest in the more stable asset, which is still going to be probably the receiver or the quarterback. I mean, that's what's great about Superflex is that you get the quarterbacks in there too. A couple good tight ends, like I would say Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, they're probably in that group too. I still think that those are going to be more stable assets. Like even if if I could start my team, I think in the magazine mock, it was you or someone else had like Dalvin Cook as like his RB3 or something like something crazy. Like that's wild, like you can do some of that stuff.
Wasn't me.
Like that'll happen sometimes. But the thing is that like it's gonna be great for year 1, but like it's not gonna be so great in the trade market. It's not gonna be so great in year 2, year 3. So it's kind of becomes, I guess, like a risk tolerance kind of issue. But the second reason is that like I still don't think that like dynasty players are necessarily targeting the correct wide receivers. I think that it's easy to just be like, oh yeah, like, I'm going to take a receiver, but these young guys, especially like the guys who maybe haven't broken out just yet, I think those players are still probably undervalued a decent bit.
Give me an example. Who's one or two? Is it like the Michael Pittman types?
Well, I felt like Rashad Bateman was going pretty overlooked for most of the offseason. Now probably not as much now that Marquise Brown's gone, but I mean, even Marquise Brown, like like he's still 24 and he's been really productive, and I feel like dynasty players don't really love him. So there's still players out there that I feel like you can get, a pretty big piece of that, like even in a wide receiver heavy startup that can add value.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm baffled that I understand why people take Chase as the wide receiver 1. I mean, I wouldn't do it. It's not like I wouldn't take him as the 2 or 3. It's, I'm picking my spots here at the top, but there's going to be weeks because if the dynasty market has T Higgins as a top 12, top 10 wide receiver, just by, logic, T Higgins is going to have those weeks. I mean, we saw it last year where Chase was down and with single digit fantasy points for multiple weeks while the defense has switched over to him. But you look at him versus Justin Jefferson. I mean, Justin Jefferson, am I out of line here saying that he's the clear cut and it's not even close wide receiver 1 in dynasty?
I don't think it's clear cut. I think it's fine to have Jefferson first. We have them, we have Chase 1, we have Jefferson 2. We literally have them 1 spot apart. So like, I think it's really close. I mean, I think both of these guys are just insane. And I definitely think that Jefferson could take even a further step forward this year just because of the stuff in Minnesota with the coaching. And I think they'll throw a little bit more, but it's still Chase for me. I mean, I think like when I look at it, I'm like, all right, well, they played together in college and Chase's a lot better. And then they played at their rookie years and Chase's was also really good. The quarterback position, I think like their overall offensive stability is better.
That's it right there. That's the argument. When someone comes at me with the Chase number 1, the 3 to 4 year outlook on the quarterback is better. I will cede that. But, it seems like Kirk Cousins somehow became a trendy name to pick as a top 5 quarterback, which, again, that's not me. Like, I'm okay. All right. He could be a top 12 quarterback for me. And I could see, he's always been good. But, it's just because they have a Rams coach there now. I mean, that all of a sudden means that he's going to be a top 5 guy. I mean, I think that you have to have some sort of running game to your quarterback, some sort of mobility in order to launch into that top 5. But you're talking about the narrative with playing with your college quarterback. Why is Jalen Waddle not getting that same respect? I mean, he arguably had just as good as a season as Chase. Where are you on Jalen Waddle? He's playing with his college quarterback. He hasn't even unlocked the piece of his game what he was known for. I mean, he showed diversity in being able to play the short game. So why doesn't Jalen Waddle get that same respect as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, we have him wide receiver 8. Like, he's right there for us. I think the market's probably lower than that. Like,
oh, yes.
I think people are just conflicted with the Tyreek Hill thing. Like, I think that it's easy to be like, all right, well, Tyreek Hill's coming in, so that means Waddle, he can't produce. Like he can't be a wide receiver 1 if Tyreek Hill's there. But I mean, we see it. We're seeing it currently in Cincinnati, right? Like, obviously, like if the offense is good, the wide receiver 2 in a really good offense is going to be better than the wide receiver 1 in a bad one. And Waddle's really young and has already had a prolific rookie year, so. Definitely big time in on Jalen Waddle. You mentioned the Tua thing. I definitely think that it matters. The thing that I don't understand is like people do this whole thing where it's like, oh, like, Tua is going to kill Waddle's ADOT and like he can't be a full route tree player. And it's like, well, like they did play together and things worked out pretty well for a while there. So like,
right, we already saw it.
I don't know if you can really make that argument that like Tua is going to hurt him. I don't think Tyreek's going to hurt him. I think that, honestly, the only thing that I could see as being like a real pitfall is just like, if Mike McDaniel is just like a Shanahan clone, they don't throw the ball enough. But, I still think that both those guys can get theirs. I mean, you have them both. You're going to use them.
I think what's an interesting dynasty strategy for this year. So it wouldn't be surprising. In fact, I think it's likely that either Tua or Tyreek in the first month of the season, one of them you're just like, oh my God, what did I get here? Like one of them's just going to be bad, right?
Yeah.
is it a buying opportunity, especially if it's Tyreek Hill? Because, he's the older player. He's in the new system. If he has 3 bad weeks in a row, do you think and when it's always like buy low, sell high. I mean, but is that a legitimate buy low if that happens?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm probably more in the camp to sell Tyreek Hill while you can, if you can. I just don't. I think that like in the Waddle Tyreek dynamic, like the guy who loses out for Dynasty to me is clearly Tyreek Hill. He's an older player. He's a player whose game is predicated on speed. Like I don't think that we generally see guys like Tyreek Hill age very well. And I guess, maybe it's hard to get out from under him now just because I think there is maybe some skepticism about how he'll perform. Like I don't necessarily think that he'll be bad in Miami right away, but I just think that like 2-3 years out, he's probably still not someone that I want to hitch my wagon to.
Yeah, a lot of dynasty players, what they do with a player like Tyreek Hill is what they'll do is they'll just try to like swap him for a younger player. What I think you try to do is with a player like Tyreek Hill is you package a pick with him and then you move up a tier. So, for example, in this offseason, one of the trades I made, and you could pan this if you want. I'm never offended at this kind of stuff. I took A.J. Brown once he was traded to the Eagles, added a first-round pick to it, and moved up to Chase. Something like that, where you take wide receiver 12 to 14, add a first, and move up to the elite tier, moving up a tier. You could do that at any tier. So maybe with Tyreek Hill, there's an opportunity there. Who do you think is a player maybe you can add your, 23 firsts are like, Bitcoin from 2 years ago. Yeah, I would say Bitcoin from 2 years ago. But yeah, it's like there's nothing more valuable in fantasy, right, than the 23 first. And meanwhile, just by the 30% of them are going to be totally busts, and then 70% will be usable. So, so who do you think is a player that you would target if you have Tyreek Hill? You want to add either a first or a second round pick with that and move up a tier. So who's a couple guys that you think we could target?
Well, I mean, if I could do it for Waddle, I'd love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still targeting Waddle. I'm still targeting DJ Moore, T Higgins. It really depends on the dynamics of your league. I mean, I don't know how, I think that how people are viewing some of these receivers, Waddle, Higgins, even like a DK Metcalf, like I think that these guys' values are gonna change like pretty dramatically between leagues. I also honestly think that like Drake London is better right now than Tyreek Hill. Like I don't think that Drake London is getting his due as a super, super productive collegiate receiver. I know it was maybe just for the 1 year, but played with some NFL talents at USC, has all that, age and experience kind of breakout metrics that we like, and is in a position where he's going to see a ton of volume, like I would assume in Atlanta. So like, why aren't people more excited about Drake London? Like I would trade Tyreek for Drake London straight up if I could.
It's literally the next question on my list. It's almost like you could see see through my screen. It says, why, here, I'm going to read it verbatim. Why doesn't Drake London get the respect of a traditional WR1? I mean, you just answered the question. Right. And you know what? It's because he's had a quiet offseason. I haven't seen one single blurb. I haven't seen that he's done good. I haven't seen that he's done bad. I haven't seen, nothing. And I think that's kind of a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this, we're in like that part. I think we're just maybe going to start to get out of it within the next couple of weeks, but we're still in like that crazy part of the offseason where like, we're just like making up news. Like anything that happens, we want to have a reaction. We want to add or subtract value as a result of it. And it's like, nothing's happening right now. Like, I don't know how to say this like more plainly, like nothing is happening right now.
Well, let me ask you about that, because the new Treylon Burks, the no news is making him fall like a stone. I mean, he went at 111 or 110 in a recent rookie draft. He was the 1-1 in single quarterback league. I mean, sorry, the 1-2 after Breece Hall. In some leagues I did, he was the one, no later than the 1-3 or the 1-4 in rookie drafts that I've done. Now the 110. Yeah. I mean, is there anything to the news? So are you just totally, give me your level of dismissal on Treylon Burks? Can't breathe, hasn't had a great start to camp. Off season.
I mean, like 100% dismissal. 100. Like I couldn't possibly care less. Like I just, this dude played in Arkansas in the summer, man. Like I'm not really that worried that like this breathing thing. Like there's no way that this is new. Now, like I think if you've been paying attention, this is my thing. Like if you've been paying attention, then you know that Treylon Burks had some conditioning question marks while he was in college. Like this shouldn't be new to you. You know that the range of outcomes on Treylon Burks is huge. Like, to me, if you've done the work, you know that Treylon Burks still has elite wide receiver 1 upside, but he also has like N'Keal Harry, like JJ Arcega-Whiteside, like out of the league, off your team in 2 years downside. Like, to me, just nothing has changed. So if you're buying the upside, you should still be buying it.
Yeah, who's the player comp upside? Yeah, I like that N'Keal Harry, JJ Arcega. By the way, you did that great with the Fega. That was beautiful, beautiful out there. But who's the upside comp for Burks?
We did a bunch of player level comps at ETR. I mean, he still has like Mike Evans, like the big receivers. I was
going to say
Dez. AJ Brown.
Is Dez Bryant a fair one?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. I mean, that's kind of like that. It's like that kind of guy where it's like big, but still pretty athletic.
You're getting trolled. Here you go. Getting trolled in the comments. Here it is. He means Kyle Phillips, I'm just assuming, but we'll have
goodness. Put some respect on this guy's name at least. Come on.
What's the troll comment? Come on. They're just coming at you. But, all right. I get, we're about 26 minutes in. We haven't even talked about our main topic. So we probably should get there before the YouTube trolls say, hey, wait a second. I thought this was a running back, but all of that conversation sets up because Anthony Amico from Establish the Run and does some great work over Football Guys. He's a wide receiver heavy drafter. I drafted with him in the RotoWire magazine, which should be out in the beginning of August. And I want to know what the hell he's going to do with his running backs in these drafts. So what he's going to tell us today is we're going to go back and forth. We're going to count down the top 7-ish. It might be 5, might be 8. Who knows? Running back values in these startup drafts. So why don't you give us your first running back value? We'll call it number 7 for the purpose of a countdown.
Sure. I mean, I think it's Brian Robinson, Washington football team / Washington Commanders / whatever you want to call them. I mean, I think that this is like the rare instance where a rookie running back has like tons and tons of dynasty value. I mean, you're going to see young guys kind of all over my list.
By the way, you can get Brian Robinson in any pick you want, more or less. I think I just got him in the 17th round of a Superflex star. Maybe it was like the 14th round, but he in a rookie draft, he doesn't go in the second round of a rookie draft. Like you can Terry and Davis. Well, I don't want to say jump the gun here, but he goes in the 3rd round of rookie drafts in most, and I'm in pretty decent leagues. Like maybe somebody pushed him up to the 2nd, but Brian Robinson, I guess the reason is because the perception is he's got, he still has Antonio Gibson there. JD McKissick signed back for the pass catching. So where is the upside with him?
I mean, I think right away, like we're talking about someone who could definitely carve out a role. Like the coaching staff, since they drafted him, which was on day 2, which is significant. Like day 2 running back selections have a much better chance of producing than day 3, which I feel like are the guys we always fall in love with. But he's been talked up as being like the new Jay Stu, where it's like, like Antonio Gibson, he can be our D'Angelo Williams, Brian Robinson, he can be our Jay Stu, and all of a sudden we have this tandem. I think that there's definitely room for him to have a role. He's big. He's gotten a ton of love throughout the draft process for his pass blocking work, which we know is always like the big stick in the mud to getting these guys on the field is, can they pass block? Brian Robinson can. So, I feel like he has upside in terms of, can he get a goal line role? He has upside in terms of, can he get a pass catching role? Like he's almost like, I guess without doing anything, he's at minimum like a dual handcuff, right? Like if anything happens to JD McKissick, he's up. If anything happens to Antonio Gibson, he's up. But there's also this potential that like he just surpasses one or both of those guys, over the next 18 months or so. And, you have someone who's like a legitimate, like top 16 kind of running back. But I think even without like those extreme situations, he's going to be playable. And that makes him, I mean, he's young. Like it's so hard to get young players that late in the draft that have potential. And I feel like Robinson is one of those guys.
Yeah, when you're doing rookie drafts, I think that as there's always going to be exceptions, but a good rule of thumb is once you hit the late 2nd round in rookie drafts, early 3rd round, you should just be taking shots on day 2, day 3 running backs over these wide receivers. And again, I know you love wide receivers, but this is the point when you hit pick like 2.9 in a rookie draft or Tyler Algier, those type of guys, why do you think Tyler Algier is getting more buzz and more, he's just basically getting drafted ahead of Brian Robinson, and he was taken in the 5th round, which is basically like, he might make the roster, probably will, but who knows, right? Whereas we know Brian Robinson is going to have a role. So what do you think the Algier, why is he getting pushed up?
So you know how like in redraft, like people talk about like the RB dead zone, where it's like these guys get pushed up because they're not necessarily good, but they're projected to have volume. Like that's kind of the thing I feel like with Algier. And like he might be good. Like I don't like he actually like graded out pretty decently for me, so I don't have like an issue with him. But like my point is just to say like my point is to say like the draft capital still isn't great. Like people are projecting him into a role because they don't see, you know, Cordero Patterson, Damian Williams. They don't see these guys as threats. So he's projecting better. Doesn't mean that he's going to produce better long term. Like it's kind of like a trap in terms of the value that we're giving him additionally, just because of the competition that's there.
All right. Don't reveal anyone else on your list, but is your list mostly made up of younger running backs?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is great because mine's all dusty veterans. So
love this for us.
This works for us. So YouTube audience, stay with us, but the podcast audience, just hang on. We're going to be right back after this message. And we're back. All right. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm with Anthony Amico from Establish the Run. Of course, he does also some great work over at the Football Guys. And we are talking about running back values in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Anthony is a known wide receiver hoarder, takes all the young wide receivers in your draft. So if you're drafting with him and you want a young wide receiver, you better be ready to elbow him out of the room. But he needs to find running backs. And so far, he's identified Brian Robinson as his number 7. Must own running back value. All right, I'm going to go. Everyone hates Zeke Elliott. I'm the only one that likes him. Okay. And I mean, all of the, so he'll be our number 6 best running back value for me. And I mean, he's only 26 years old. He's being treated like he's 126 years old. I know yards per carry is not, it's the stat we use. Okay. It's not the best stat, but it's the one we use. It bakes in mostly everything. The yards per carry was right around where it was. We talked about playing Dynasty in win now mode. If you're going to give him to me at RB20 in Dynasty, RB15, RB16 in redraft, I'm just going to take him. It's not that I think that, I mean, Zeke was the RB6 or RB7 last year. It's not like he didn't do it. And I'm not saying that he's going to be this top 3 league winning guy, but Zeke's superpower is that he's very durable. And when he's not even on the midweek injury report, that is value. You don't have to go fighting everybody for the net and blow your budget on the next running back. So just based on availability, his role, and if he gets you 14 fantasy points a week with a couple spike weeks, again, I'm not looking to win my league with every pick. When I have deep rosters, when you're playing an FFPC or you're playing on Sleeper or the NFFC, you need guys that you could stick in your lineup that have definite roles. To me, nobody else wants them. I'll take them. So that's going to be number 6. Just you can shit on my Zeke thing right now. Go ahead. If you'd like.
Well, no, I'm going to pander, obviously, because I'm not a confrontational person. But no, I think that the thing that's crazy with Zeke to me is that, like, you say he's 26. You say that people treat him like 100. I think his body might actually be that old, though. That's the thing. Like,
he doesn't miss games. He doesn't miss games.
I'm torn on him from the standpoint that I think that Dallas has made it clear that, like, when he's feeling all right, that they are going to just, like, ride him. Like, they know it's a sunk cost. I think that they know they messed up with this contract, but, like, they still are trying to save face of this thing and use this guy. Now, like, the thing is that, like, after this year, it's kind of up. Like, I think that 2023, like, he may not be the running back there. And that really complicates things for me. I'm not really sure that he's going to get a big enough role somewhere else to see this. Now, what's interesting is that Tony Pollard is also up. Dallas has really managed to really bungle this up very well for themselves, where, like, if they want to move on from Zeke, they're either going to have to pay Pollard or draft another running back. So I think that the whole situation in Dallas is kind of difficult to invest in, but I still can't really pull the trigger on Elliott.
Yeah, I won't belabor too much, but his dead cap next year is still 11 million. So I think that, dead cap alone, 11 million, I think that keeps him on the roster through 23. So you're looking at a 2-year window. I know what you're saying. If they absolutely wanted to get out, they could, but 11 million is probably gives him an 80% chance to stay on the roster. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. And also, like I said, 15 games in every season except for the one where he's suspended. I talk about Zeke on every podcast. All right. Who's our next? Who's going to be our next best running back value in Dynasty? We've covered Brian Robinson. I said Zeke. You're up on number 5.
Yeah, we're going to stay in that division. I'm going to go with Kenny Gainwell out of Philly. I still haven't given up on Kenny Gainwell. I thought last year he had a great receiving profile. That's usually the kind of back that I want to target in these wide receiver heavy builds. Like I want the guys who can get me PPR points, who can get me catches. I thought that Gainwell's role with the team kind of ebbed and flowed last year, to put it nicely. I thought, he had some weeks where he was used a lot. He had some weeks where he wasn't. And I really thought that he would play more than he did in the games where Miles Sanders wasn't used or was injured. Like I wasn't expecting as much Boston Scott. So I was wrong there. But I'm still not giving up on Gainwell. Like I still think that he's clearly the best receiving back that they have. They haven't really shown any interest in throwing the ball to Miles Sanders. And I think that the A.J. Brown trade does indicate a desire to throw the ball a little bit more like they did in the first half of last season. Maybe not to that extent, but they want to eventually, I think, get back to throwing the ball a little bit more. Can Jalen Hurts do that? I don't know. But the thing with the Eagles is that they have positioned themselves to be in play for one of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft class if the Hurts thing doesn't work. So, I think that by 2023, either Hurts is going to have taken a big step forward, and this is an offense that can throw the ball a little bit more, or they're going to just get rid of Hurts and they'll have CJ Stroud or one of these other top quarterbacks next year's class. And this could be a passing offense as soon as 2023. And if that happens, Gainwell's your guy.
Yeah, it's funny that you don't hear much talk about Gainwell. One other sharp analyst, Joe Dolan over at Fantasy Points, kind of whispered him to me, and you're the second guy. So I've started so I'm going to start drafting him a little more. It's, say he's pick your round that you want him in. You want him in 12, you want him in 50, you can have him. Like the Dynasty startup drafts are giving them to you. They're starting to be a little bit more buzz now, which is interesting. But yeah, from a long-term play, I like that. And I see what you're doing here. You're stacking guys. All you need to do is hit on one of them. So I'm going Dusty Veteran again, because I'm assuming just the value on these guys is so good in a 2-year window. That's what I'm thinking. You always often hear about like the productive struggle as a dynasty strategy. It's like, I don't have the stomach for that. I can't pick guys that are going to win for me in 2 years when I just want to win for 2 years. So it's, but you're talking about now at the end of your draft value guys. All right. My next guy is, I have a whole list here I can go with, but I'm going to say James Conner's got a real nice 2-year window ahead of him here. The money. There's a perception that James Conner is an injury guy. My Jim Coventry over at RotoWire gave me a good explanation. He said at Pittsburgh, they kind of crowd the running, whereas they run more outside. There's going to be less linebacker hits. He's less likely to get more hits. And other than that 6-game stretch, he hasn't really missed more than any other running back. It's been like 3 games here, 2 games there. I know that he's, everyone yells regression on the touchdowns, but as Kyler, as Kyler Murray, until he gets that contract, I don't think he's going to be putting his body at risk either. So I think there's more upside here for James Conner. Now, the Darrell Williams signing got me a little dubious, but James Conner's price in these drafts, he's going as, I think, the 17th or 18th or 20th. You can get him in the 8th round. And if you go on wide receiver heavy, that's the perfect guy there. So this is in direct contradiction to what your best running back values are. So just give us a quick line on James Conner. You down with him as once you've scooped up all the wide receivers and tight ends that you can? No,
I love this. This is the guy we want. Like, he's someone that in redraft, he's an RB1. So why is he going so late in Dynasty? I think, like you said, it's just about the perception. Okay. No, I love James Conner. This is great.
Oh, great. All right. That makes me feel good because I have too much James Conner. All right. You're up. So we're up to you're up to number 4. Who's our 4th ranked best running back value for Dynasty?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not really sure what the reception will be like on this one, but I'm going to go Tyrion Davis-Price. You did mention earlier. I still think he's going late enough where we need to be drafting him. Again, day two pick. Shanahan back. Like, these are things that usually we like, but I think that there's like a little bit of like love or scorn here after the Trey Sermon thing that we don't want to go back to the day 2 Shanahan pick with Davis-Price. And I just think it's a mistake. Like, Eli Mitchell is a 6th round pick. I know that he was Shanahan's guy last year. Like, if he was healthy, he was carrying the ball 20 times, like 15 times, whatever. But like, they still drafted this guy. Like, I think that at the price, No pun intended. Like we need to be taking
we love
advantage
a good pun.
here of the potential.
We love a good pun on this show. Yeah, but it's so you mentioned Trey Sermon, by the way, and this is not a one-time Shanahan third-round picks scorn here. He did it. You remember with Joe Williams?
Oh yeah.
So
no. Listen, Shanahan's a demon. There's no question. But like they have a lack of picks and a lot of needs, I thought, last year, and they still drafted this guy. Like, listen, I'm just saying, like, he's in the room. Like, we have to at least pay attention. And the price is still low enough where we're not really paying attention. So I just pay attention a little more. Like, I'm not saying RB25, but like, he's being drafted like close to RB50. Like, I think that's too low.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you some love on this one. This is great. He's moving up. Like he was TDP was a like early third round rookie pick, moved to the back of the second round. In the last 2 rookie drafts that I've done, he's gone 2-3, 2-4, which is I think aggressive, but I get it. I mean, look, nobody wants Jeff Wilson in any of these drafts. I got him in the 28th round, but there's going to be 2 weeks where Jeff Wilson is the DFS must-start guy, right? I mean, he's in the room, and if Tyrion Davis-Price is even, most of advertised, he could be in a committee by week 3, and he could have the job by week 6. You said a 6th-round pick is promised nothing. It's very rare you get like an Arian Foster, like a late round or an undrafted guy that just takes over, and that's it. They always draft over you. I love that one. It's funny that you thought you were going to get a cold reception on that one. That to me so far has been my favorite of them all. So,
oh, nice. All right, I'll take that.
All right. So as you see, Anthony is sticking with these flashy toys. And by the way, so if you're going wide receiver heavy, though, I mean, you can't roster all these running backs. Who's going to be a running back that you're just going to look to start? Like, who are some of the guys that if you've gone receiver, tight end, receiver, now you need a running back. Who's it going to be?
James Conner, man. You got him.
Okay.
You got the guy. You got the guy.
All right. So we're okay. That's fair. That's fair. All right. Let's move along here. My next one, what are we up to? Number 3?
Yeah.
Really, this is the guy I would have at number 2. So, and by the way, we're counting these guys down. We might do 8, 10 of these guys. I don't know. We'll call them. It's how the SEO works. Top 7, this number top 10. Yeah. So I get stuck in that sometimes, but we're just going to count down our favorite running back values in Dynasty. I'm going to throw out Aaron Jones, man. I mean, I thought it would be hot takey or bold call to say Aaron Jones can finish as the RB1 overall in 2022 redraft leagues. I don't think that's that hot. I mean, I don't understand why he's a 2nd-round pick. If you're in a redraft league with me, you're not getting Aaron Jones in the 2nd round because when I pick at pick 10, 11, 12, that's usually my pick. We saw the games without Devontae Adams. I know he's 27 years old, but this, as we know, Aaron Rodgers is a circle of trust guy. And there's one guy that we can be confident he trusts on that team. And we know Aaron Rodgers is there for at least 2 seasons, probably 3 with his contract. Yep. And we know Aaron Jones, the contract runs out. I also acknowledge that A.J. Dillon is going to probably outcarry him, but he's not going to outpass him. This could be one of those, 70-plus catch seasons, even when they get down the goal line. I mean, we've already seen Aaron Jones have 20 touchdown seasons, and I don't think he's ever had less than 9 other than his rookie year. So if 9 touchdowns is his floor, and you're going to let me have him in the 7th round of Superflex startup drafts every single time. I just paid a 2023 first for Aaron Jones on a team that's loaded. I did an Anthony Amico approved draft with wide receiver in the first 6 rounds. I fell a little short on running back. I just gave my 23 first, and now I have him and Eli Mitchell as my 2 running backs. So Aaron Jones, 27 is scary, especially when that clock ticks to 28. Are you okay for him being a veteran value in Dynasty?
Yeah, I was honestly shocked to see that we were so much higher than the market on him. And I actually did also just trade for Aaron Jones in one of my main leagues.
What'd you pay?
Well, it was like a bigger trade. I gave up like Breece Hall.
So the 1-1.
Yeah, like a bunch of and then like a couple older guys, Thielen, but I got back Jones. Oh, so it's a super flex league. So Zach Wilson was in that trade, and I got back Hurts. I got back Jones. I got back Amon-Ra St. Brown. So a little win now, a little win later. That's
No, I'm like it. Well, I always think like your Dynasty portfolio, and again, we'll get back to our best running back values in Dynasty, but I always think for me, my optimal portfolio is 50% win now, 25% totally speculative, and then 25% plausible upside guys. I mean, that would be my ideal balance, kind of like a 401k portfolio.
Yeah, and the main reason that I did that deal is just because I'm like, well, I think that Aaron Jones is probably going to ball out this year. Like, if he's like a top 5 or top 6 running back at the end of the year, like, I don't care what Breece Hall does in 2023. Like, I'm trying to win this year, and like, for me, the running back point, like, I really do want to get them at that price, like at top of the board type price. I want the points now. I don't want to have to wait for them. So yeah, no, I think that Aaron Jones is a great call. You mentioned the receptions. Like, I'm a huge AJ Dillon truther. Like, I think we're ahead of market on him too. But like, there's room for both of these guys because there's no receivers, and there's not going to be. Like, and we've seen the games that Devontae Adams has missed. Aaron Jones has caught 5+ catches in all of them.
Oh, you mean you're not buying into Alan Lazard is going to get Devontae Adams' workload just because Aaron Rodgers said he's my wide receiver 1?
Yeah, no, that's a pass for me. That's a pass for me.
Yeah. No, I like the price on Alan Lazard in redraft, like the 10th round.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, especially if, I'm a running back heavy guy. Let's stick with this, and then we'll crowbar in some philosophy questions, strategy questions. All right. Who's your next running back value? You're a wide receiver heavy drafter. Who are some of these guys that you're targeting Dynasty?
Yeah, so I'm going to stay with rookie, but I'm going to go a little further up the board, and that's James Cook. Still not getting enough love, I don't think.
Where should he go in rookie drafts? Because right now, he went from being like pick 12 to pick 10. Now I see him pick 7. Given your receiver love, where would you take him in just rookie only drafts?
Yeah, I think in rookie drafts, like, that range is still fine. To me, it's fine in rookie drafts to value the running backs a little bit more because we know that when running backs produce, they do it in their first couple of years. They do it when they're young. So, like, I'm okay with taking those running backs in the rookie drafts. That value is lower than what they would be in startups to me. Then they produce, then you flip them. So right. I think that's kind of the carousel you'd like to have. But a guy like Cook, to me, like, I just think that in one of the most aggressive passing offenses in football, like, I want the guy that's going to catch the passes. To me, that's James Cook. Like, this team has shown really outside of the last like handful of weeks, like, no real consistent love for Devin Singletary. They tried to sign J.D. McKissick. Like, it tells me that they want a receiving back. I mean, Cook is like around this close to 200 pounds. Like, I'm good with that. He doesn't have to be too big. So I think if you get this guy on the field again, really good offense, catching passes, that means he's on the field. That means he's in position to score touchdowns. Like, they're going to play fast.
You know what? And I like that pick. You know what James Cook reminds me of? Do you remember Alvin Kamara's rookie year? Mark Ingram was there. I mean, we thought of Mark Ingram more than we think of Devin Singletary.
Definitely.
Drew Brees at that time was considered an elite top quarterback. The Saints were one of the best offenses. Yet Alvin Kamara in redraft went in the 9th, 10th round. Where's James Cook going? The 7th, 8th, 9th round. And Alvin Kamara in rookie drafts was going pick 7, 8, 9. And where's James Cook going? 7, 8, 9. I know Alvin Kamara, and James Cook has better draft capital than Alvin Kamara had. So This is starting to be eerily similar in narrative. You never know. I mean, he could end up being the best pick. That's always what there's something that's happening in redraft and in Dynasty that's blowing my mind, where both Bills running backs are not taken in the top 5 or 6 rounds, yet they're a top 3 offense. But both Dolphins wide receivers are taken in the top 30 picks, and nobody likes Tua. It doesn't like add up to me. So why aren't the Bills running backs, both of them, Singletary and James Cook, being pushed up into the 4th round?
Well, I think that because the last couple of seasons, because Zach Moss wasn't working and Devin Singletary for the most part wasn't working, like, there's the perception that 2 things will be true in Buffalo. Number 1, they're not going to score any touchdowns. Josh Allen's going to score the touchdowns. And number 2, they're going to be a committee that completely takes the value out of both players. Now, I think some of that is probably going to be a little true, right? I mean, Josh Allen's still going to score some touchdowns. But, like, I don't know, man. You start getting into, these long-term contracts, big money. Like, are you going to be running your quarterback at the goal line as much? I would imagine probably not. But offense this good, there's going to be plenty of touchdowns to go around. And, maybe part of the reason that they've always had an RBBC is because they've never had a running back good enough to ride a little bit harder. And I don't even really care. Like, if James Cook is getting 4, 5, 6 catches. I don't care if he only gets 8 to 10 carries. Like, that's fine. This offense is good enough to make that work.
Yeah, I like that pick with James Cook. I think in the beginning, it just shows you like nothing's happened in football, but my James Cook take in right after the draft was he's a sucker's pick in the first round. And now I'm like, get him at pick 4. It's like, it's, like, it's just funny how your own opinions evolve. And that's what leak in my game is I need to really just think about it, not just get ready to push the take out there and then stick with it. And obviously things change and you change your opinions and things like that. So just sticking with the topic of rookie drafts before we just go back onto our running back values. Superflex rookie drafts, Kenny Pickett. I still believe a first round pedigree quarterback is worth taking in the top 4 or 5 picks. I mean, I would take him at pick 2 if I was desperate at quarterback. I don't expect you to agree with me there, but with all the question marks around him, where are you going to be on Kenny Pickett in rookie drafts in a Superflex league?
Still probably like in that 6 to 8 range. I mean, I think that the top tier of guys, like I still want my Drake London, I still want my Breece Hall, like the top guys, I still want to take over the quarterback. But like, I think I'm kind of at a point where like Pickett over Olave, like I'm not really going to throw my hands at that. Like I just think that, like you said, I'm still taking Burks. Taking Burks. I think that ceiling is there. Honestly, the biggest thing with Pickett for me is just that he doesn't run enough. He runs a little bit. Like I think he actually probably runs a little more than people think.
His best highlight was the fake dive. That was a run. His number one highlight is a run. But that's cool. I know what you're saying. It's just ironic that he's not a running quarterback yet. The highlight that everyone knows is a run.
Yeah, I mean, like I think the thing that, and this is something Pat Kerrane has like said so much that like it's really ingrained in my head. Like you want to think about the trade value for these guys too. Like once Kenny Pickett's starting and he's throwing to like 3 like pretty good wide receivers and like they're playing in a decent offense, people are going to forget about like the tiny hands and all this other, you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh, like Kenny Pickett, he's young, he's a rookie, he's a starting quarterback. All of a sudden the value goes up. So like even if you draft Kenny Pickett and you're wrong, like there's going to be a window to move him. I mean, like Zach Wilson was terrible last year and people can still get him for a decent amount, like I think that there's always room to move these guys if it happens.
After one of the worst fantasy seasons of all time, Zach Wilson is still QB 14 in startup drafts, QB 15, something like that. It is unbelievable. I'm going to zip through my last couple. I'm not even going to do explanation, and then we'll get to how many more do you have here, running back values that you wrote down?
I have one more that I definitely want to talk about. All
right, so then I'm just going to zip through lightning round. I think Leonard Fournette is still a great value in Dynasty. He's going to have the workload. He's a 5th round pick. If you've gone heavy wide receiver, I like that one. Kareem Hunt, nobody wants him. He's probably one of the best trade candidate. I could see a team like the Chargers trading for him if Isaiah Spiller doesn't work out. Kareem Hunt's still pretty young. You can get him in any single digit round, which obviously I don't even think you have to, but round 11, round 12 in Superflex drafts. And the last guy I wrote on there is if you've just pounded the receivers, tight ends, and you've even taken one of your Superflex quarterbacks, I like Ramondre Stevenson just as a boring fill in the gap pick, double digit. So those are mine. Let's go to any comments on those, or I saw Leonard Fournette. You didn't like that one.
Well, no, I'm just laughing because my guy is Rachaad White. So
okay.
Kind of the foil there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's room to buy both. Like, I don't think Fournette is going at like a dramatic price where you can't do this, but I just think that White's profile, like from the start, has just been really undervalued. So I think that we're still catching up a little bit there. Like he had an extensive receiving profile in college, ran the ball well enough at high efficiency, which I think is what you want to see at minimum. And he has requisite weight to take on a load and to be used around the goal line long term. Now, like, listen, like this is Tom Brady's team. Like I have no illusion that Leonard Fournette is getting the ball. But like, I still think that there's room, and I still think that they've been looking for the last couple years for like this receiving back. Like, I don't think that they want to throw Fournette the ball this much. I just don't think that they've had much other option, and I think that White can be that guy. So this is kind of like a James Cook plus kind of situation where the plus is, I think that the running back value, if anything happens to Fournette, like White being like an RB1 immediately is super in the range of outcomes.
Do you think if something happened to Fournette, though, is there a chance it would be a committee with, Giovanni Bernard and, nobody really loves Keyshawn Vaughn, but you think White's profile is just that good, draft capital's fine in the 3rd round. almost like a David Johnson-esque type of player that he would just push those other guys out of the way. And also the fact that he's older rookie, 23 years old, that might be a good thing. He's fully seasoned at this point.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned David Johnson, like that's exactly the guy. Like that's exactly kind of what we're looking at, where it's like, the older players ahead of him. I definitely think more of Leonard Fournette than I think of like, Chris Johnson and whatever all those other guys were there in Arizona. But like similar kind of deal where you have this talented pass catcher who's big enough to handle a rushing load, who has high efficiency, gets a chance. Like he could definitely do a lot in his rookie year.
All right, man. That wraps up our running back values in Dynasty. And I purposely left a few minutes. I wanted to leave more time. I have a ton of questions for you. Just basically, how did you start doing fantasy football content? How did you end up doing work for Football Guys and also all your rookie and Dynasty work at Establish the Run? Give me your origin story of how it all started for you.
Oh, gosh.
And you can give me the cliff notes or you can go as long as you want. I'm genuinely interested. I know the audience will be too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the shortest possible version that doesn't leave out too much detail is that, I was just really interested, obviously, in all this stuff. So I started just doing like a podcast with two of my best friends. One of them is Matt LaMarca. He works at like Fantasy Labs and a bunch of stuff. Like he's in the industry as well now. But, we were just kind of like messing around and some like hot click site like heard our podcast and was like, oh, like do it for us. So then we started doing that. Then I was just trying to do more content. So I started writing. And then I started at RotoViz. That was where I really started to really do a lot more, submitted a writing sample and got to start there. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where everything went. I've been like at a bunch of different places. I've worked for a ton of different websites, but I love where I am now. I mean, I think the culture at both ETR and Football Guys are top notch, definitely some of the best. And I'm really happy.
How long have you been doing work over at ETR?
We're entering year 2. I think it's probably like, I want to say like May of last year when I started.
Yeah, I had heard you on. I think you were on with like. I wish you were doing more pods with them. I had heard you on a pod with them maybe right before, not too long before we did the magazine mock. And when I reached out to Adam, to do Dynasty work, he right away pointed me to you. I said, "Great, this is we want real Dynasty guys in there that know Dynasty and know the game." And why do you think that Dynasty is back? I mean, because Dynasty is actually an old form of fantasy football. Why do you think it's popping more? I mean, best ball obviously is in a good groove. DFS probably has hit its peak. I mean, it's still going strong, but why do you think Dynasty now is starting to pop in popularity again?
I mean, I think it's reflective of the state of football, right? I mean, football is an all year round sport. We can talk about the Super Bowl ending in February and not starting again until September, but the reality is like the schedule keeps you engaged all year. You have the draft, you have training camp, you have free agency, like there is always something in the news pertaining to the NFL, and Dynasty is like the best way to keep engaged with all of that, through the off season and obviously like during the year as well. So I think that I think Dynasty football is like synonymous with the football schedule, and that's what makes it work.
It's making Dynasty makes it hard for me to play redraft. I love Dynasty so much. I mean, do you have a preference or do you like the formats equally, redraft and Dynasty?
I probably prefer Dynasty. I think that now, especially like with the best ball stuff, like it lets me do more. Like I can play in more leagues and not have like that in-season guilt when it's all happening so much, when everything's happening. Because it is fun. I mean, like when the draft happens, when it's rookie draft time and you have like multiple leagues to go through, that's like the best time of the year. That's almost May. That's completely apart from the season,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then startup season as well. So I want everyone to go follow Anthony Amico on Twitter. It's one of my favorite follows. I enjoy your brand of putting out good football content and personality on there. I know you put out some other, you obviously have a passion for other sports too. Is football is your primary, I'm assuming, because I saw you do some baseball and you love the NBA. So are those the 3 sports that you mostly focus on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, football is always number one in my heart. I mean, like I played it, I coach it. Like I love the sport. Like it's done so much for me, I feel like, in my life. So I'll always have like a real close attachment to that. Basketball is great. I'm definitely growing there, and baseball is cool too. But football is the one.
What position did you play when you played football?
Well, I mean, the truth is left bench, but I was a receiver and a D-back.
Yeah. Okay. I was to say, what were you listed on the roster then?
Yeah.
That's right. And you coach high school football now?
Yeah, it's really great. It's the same school that I teach at. I'm a coach there, and I do special teams. I do the receivers, I do D-backs, and it's great. It's a lot of fun.
So working, now I'm fascinated a little bit. If you don't mind, I got a couple more questions.
No, you're good. You're good.
So what do you think, you hear today about the modern day student athlete? I mean, remember like when we played athletics, it wasn't uncommon to play 2-3 sports. Do you find now that kids are just playing the one sport mostly? Is that how it works now?
Yeah, the specialization is tough. You actually don't see the specialization as much in football because you can't play it all year round. Like there's no, it's not a tournament sport, like you see it more in like baseball, lacrosse, soccer, like, because that's what they do. Like they play and then they play it all year round. So I am not a fan of specialization. Maybe I'm biased because I feel like typically that's taking athletes out of my sport because they're going to play something else. It's very rare that it's happening for football. But, I think that a lot of the research has shown that like being a multi-sport athlete gives you a wide range of skills. Like all those skills translate into each individual sport. Like I think you create a more well-rounded athlete and a more rounded person, obviously, if you're doing more things. But yeah, that's definitely, I think, the thing that's changed the most. I get why they do it, but it's a big change.
What's the biggest issue, the biggest hardship that you face as coaching young athletes? And again, I'm coming from a perspective where I used to coach middle school basketball. They drove me out of the profession. I referee high school basketball now. So I do all year round, and I deal with coaches and players and parents, all the things. So what do you think right now that the biggest challenge as a coach of varsity athletes is?
Man, that's a really good question. I mean, I think that you just have to be like aware of the impact that you have. I mean, I don't know if that's something that people think about when they get involved in this, because it's like you want to coach because you think about like winning and you think about like, drawing up the perfect play and all this stuff. But I think like there is like a mental fatigue that comes from being, and it's the same as being a teacher, like from having to like be really thoughtful about what you say, where you say it, who you say it to, and just like the impact that you have on these guys' lives. Like you're not just, to them, like you're not just their coach. Like in a lot of cases, you're someone that they really care about, opinion they care about. Like you really shape a lot of how these kids feel and what they think. So yeah, you have to really be mindful of that.
Some of my most treasured memories are from my coaches in high school athletes, high school athletics. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That's I could do a whole podcast on this. We'll have to have you back once things calm down, man. Tell everyone what you're working on right now and where they can find your work. I follow you on Twitter at Amico, but I'll link all that in the video description below. What else are you working on that you want to promote?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just updating the Dynasty stuff constantly at ETR. We'll have an update this week on the rankings where we update the ranks. Then we do a change log where you can, read about why we made some of the biggest changes that we made. I think that's a really useful tool. So definitely check that out. Projections and rankings constantly being tweaked at Football Guys. And I do have a Substack, which is linked in my Twitter bio. Haven't had the time to write as much as I'd like to this month.
I was just going to say, man, I'm on your Substack and I need more free content, please.
I'm hoping to get there. But what we do have at the Substack is the player comp projections app, which I built basically in simplest form, like lets you put in a player. You can set the parameters how you like, but it's going to return to you the most similar seasons to that player since I want to say like 2015 or so. And we'll give you like a range of outcomes projection for this upcoming season based on how those players perform. So it's a really useful tool. Lets you see like, should I be worried about James Conner? Like what other running backs look a lot like him? How have they performed? And it gives you, I think, just like one other thing to bounce off of when you're setting when you're trying to set up for this season.
All right. Yeah, man. I saw you could put like the number of comps you want. You want 5 comps, 10 comps. You can also change that as well. So I was on there checking it out. I advised everyone to do that. All right, Anthony, man. You've been generous with me, generous with your time, generous with RotoWire. We value your input. And I think that this conversation here, it gives people some things to think about as far as if you're going to be a wide receiver heavy player. And even if you're not, but these are some guys that you need to target. Anthony was talking about some of the young guys. We'll link all those in the video description below too. And we'll be back next week with another episode. I believe we'll have Tom and Greg on from the NFFC talking about some high stakes contests as those start to come to fruition. All right, everybody, good luck in your dynasty leagues. Trade for some of those guys that Anthony was talking about, and still take on some of those dusty veterans that I was talking about in these. But like you said, there could be 2 years windows. All right, everybody, goodbye.